The year is 1995. Nelson Mandela, a famous political figure and philanthropist, has just been elected South Africa's first ever president. His first major undertaking? Guiding the country out of a turbulent period of apartheid, a system that ensured that South Africa was dominated politically, socially, and economically by the nation's white population. At the same time, the nation is also hosting the Rugby World Cup, where the people were encouraged to come together and support the country's predominantly white national team. This was a difficult ask to make of black South Africans who were just emerging from a time of oppression. But Mandela didn't see the situation as an obstacle. He viewed it as an opportunity. With a thrilling extra time win in the final, the team captured the cup, and the world watched as Mandela, donning the team's jersey, presented the cup to team captain Francois Pienaar. This moment would go down in history as a major step in the reconciliation of white and black South Africans. Mandela went on to say, "Forgiveness liberates the soul. It removes fear, and that is such a powerful weapon." The version of that story I just told is only a glimpse into a journey of unrest, civil war, reconciliation, and eventually healing. And yes, the final result was forgiveness, but it was a process, just like it is for all of us. It's not a neat process either. Sometimes you're just too angry to feel like you can offer forgiveness. Sometimes you think you've let things go, but then you realize there's more you haven't worked through yet. Forgiveness is a choice that we have to make over and over, every day, until we're completely free of hurt. Can you think of someone you're angry with or holding a grudge against right now? Or maybe someone you don't talk to anymore because a disagreement hurt or even ruined the relationship. Now, I'll pause for a second here to say that sometimes it is the right call to part ways with someone when your relationship with them hurts you or just isn't healthy. But the thing is, in every relationship, we have or are going to get hurt in one way or another. And if we ended relationships every time someone hurt us, well, eventually we'd end up all alone. So we need to be able to forgive. But first, we need to know more about why we should and explore how we should. If each of us can learn to offer forgiveness, we can have justice not just for us, but justice for all. For the last few weeks, we've been exploring the story of Joseph from the Old Testament. It's been a lot of story in a short period of time. So in case you weren't here or just need a refresher, let's recap a little bit. Joseph's dad, Jacob, caused some family issues by favoring Joseph over the rest of his brothers. And because of that favoritism, and a lot of other things that we won't cover today, Joseph's brothers grew to hate him. The thing that seemed to set his brothers off for good was when he shared his dreams with them. In those dreams, God spoke to Joseph in a vision and showed him that he would one day find himself in a position of authority with everyone, including his own family, bowing down to him. This vision was the last straw for Joseph's brothers. After some debate, they decided against killing him, and in a moment of compassion, they sold him into slavery instead. How considerate of them. While he was enslaved, Joseph hung onto his hope and his integrity. Then he was falsely accused of a crime and thrown into prison, but even there, Joseph's character and confidence in God won him the trust of the prison guard. In total, Joseph spends 12 years in jail. But during that time, Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, takes notice of Joseph, releases him from prison, and gives him a position of power. Miraculously, Joseph goes from being a slave to second in command over all of Egypt. But as all of this goes on, Joseph also hasn't seen or heard from his family in 13 years, not since his brothers sold him into slavery. Meanwhile, his brothers and his father live in a nearby country, and because of a famine, they're starving to death. Their long-lost brother Joseph is the last thing on their minds. As far as they know, he's dead. There's one place where there isn't a food shortage, though: Egypt. And this isn't a coincidence. In fact, Egypt is prepared for this famine because of more dreams. This time, the dreams are given to Pharaoh by God and interpreted by Joseph. So Joseph's brothers hear that there's food in Egypt, and they set out on a journey to get some. Little do they know that Joseph is in charge of the distribution of food. So when the brothers arrive, they stand before Joseph and don't even recognize him. But he definitely recognizes them. And his reaction is a little bit surprising, but also understandable. Joseph could stand it no longer. There were many people in the room, and he said to his attendants, "Out, all of you." So he was alone with his brothers when he told them who he was. Then he broke down and wept. He wept so loudly the Egyptians could hear him, and word of it quickly carried to Pharaoh's palace. Joseph cries because he's in pain. Deep, deep pain. And that makes sense, right? He suffered at the hands of his brothers. He was hated, attacked, nearly killed, abandoned, and then sold into slavery by them. This is the kind of hurt that doesn't just go away. It can't be healed with a simple apology. When you've been hurt as deeply as Joseph was, healing from it will take time. There's another important angle to consider about this situation. It wasn't that long ago that Joseph was a slave, the bottom of the barrel, with absolutely zero power and authority to speak of. And he was there because of the actions of his brothers. Now, Joseph's influence is second only to Pharaoh's, and the very people who caused him to spend 12 years behind bars stand before him now, at his mercy. What would you do in that situation? When I graduated from college, I lived at home for a while as I was getting on my feet and starting at my job. At the same time, my younger brother was heading off to college for his freshman year. To spare you some of the dirty details, let's just say I found out that he was going somewhere he wasn't supposed to be going, at a time of night where he definitely shouldn't have been there. My brother pleaded with me, "Please, don't tell mom and dad." But you see, I held the power here. I held his very fate in my hands, and I had a decision to make. I could keep a secret while also extending grace and helping him through the situation, or I could immediately tell our parents and finally one-up my brother for all the times I had gotten into something stupid and not gotten away with it, thanks in part to him. So tempting. This is the kind of decision that Joseph has to make, with much more at stake, which makes what he does next even more remarkable. "I am Joseph," he said to his brothers. "Is my father still alive?" But his brothers were speechless. They were stunned to realize that Joseph was standing there in front of them. "Please, come closer," he said to them. So they came closer. And he said again, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into slavery in Egypt. But don't be upset, and don't be angry with yourselves for selling me to this place. It was God who sent me here ahead of you to preserve your lives. This famine that has ravaged the land for 2 years will last 5 more years, and there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. God has sent me ahead of you to keep you and your families alive and to preserve many survivors. So it was God who sent me here, not you. And he is the one who made me an advisor to Pharaoh, the manager of his entire palace and the governor of all Egypt." After all the hurt and trauma he's been through, Joseph extends love to his family. He forgives when he has every reason not to forgive. Rather than hanging on to bitterness, Joseph releases his pain. And beyond that, he sees that God was working in and through him all along. He realizes that the actions of his brothers are what put all of this in motion, but God was going to work something for good out of it. Joseph was now in a position to help not just the nation, but his own family too. Rather than seeking revenge, he vows to make sure his family is safe and well fed. He even invites them to Egypt to be near him. Then Joseph gives his brothers a chance to redeem themselves. He asks them to go home and come back with their dad. Joseph knows that they may not take him up on the offer, but the fact that he even lets them out of his sight shows them that he can trust them again. The brothers honor Joseph's request and bring the entire family to Egypt, where they live safely for 17 years. But when their father Jacob dies, Joseph's brothers worry that Joseph isn't completely past what they did to him. But now that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers became fearful. Now Joseph will show his anger and pay us back for all the wrong we did to him," they said. So they sent this message to Joseph: "Before your father died, he instructed us to say to you, 'Please forgive your brothers for the great wrong they did to you, for their sin in treating you so cruelly. So we, the servants of the God of your father, beg you to forgive our sin.'" When Joseph received the message, he broke down and wept. Then his brothers came and threw themselves down before Joseph. "Look, we are your slaves," they said. But Joseph replied, "Don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people." We don't know for sure if Jacob really gave his sons that message for Joseph, or if they were just making it up to protect themselves. The Bible doesn't say definitively, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because it doesn't change what Joseph does. Joseph didn't forgive his brothers because they deserved it. He forgave them because he wanted to restore a broken relationship. He wanted to see restoration, peace, and wholeness. So he decided to help create it through forgiveness. And he declares he's not in a position to judge them because God is the one who ultimately balances the scale of justice. Joseph knew that forgiving his brothers wouldn't erase what they had done to him, but it would begin the healing process for them and for him. And that's why Joseph's story is the perfect example of God's definition of justice. It's not justice that punishes or takes revenge. It's justice that seeks to restore what is broken. What would it look like to see this kind of justice exist in our lives? First, we can offer forgiveness. Justice is about making wrong things right. So our hope and our goal should always be for our relationships to be healed and made whole. Joseph and his family eventually reconciled, but like we said earlier, it's not always possible. And the reason why that's true is because reconciliation requires both sides to join back together. But forgiveness doesn't. It only requires one side. It only requires you. Joseph forgave his brothers with no guarantee that his relationship with them would be reconciled. And you can do the same in the relationships you have that are broken. We can also seek restoration. Justice always seeks to see people healed. Joseph and his brothers had a lot of healing to do. But Joseph understood that restoration, like forgiveness, is sometimes a long process. God's justice isn't about moving on quickly or ignoring the hurt that comes. It's about a journey for people, for you and me to be healed, to become whole, to be restored. I don't know what relationships in your life are broken or how they got that way. Whether it was because of something someone else did or maybe because of a mistake that you made. But I do know this: God wants to see His justice in your life. He wants to see forgiveness given to you or by you. He wants to see healing and restoration. And He wants to see forgiveness, hopefully reconciliation. He wants to see justice, to see what is broken be restored.